Hello, and welcome to Deliver More, presented by Intech Services. The clocks have given us more daylight. Spring has sprung, and I'm so excited to be here today. Today, I'm joined by Mike Patterson. Mike, hello. How you doing today?
Hey, Nick. How are you? How's everyone doing out there?
I'm doing pretty well, buddy. Thank you so much for asking. Today, we're in a world where life is returning. We're getting good news on people's health and vaccinations, and
Yes,
people, business is coming back in a lot of ways. So we wanted to do an episode that featured something really important in marketing. So we thought it'd be ideal to bring on today's guest. So I want her to introduce herself. The marketing director for Intech Services is joining us today, Francesca Vavala. Hello, Francesca. Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to your role as the marketing director here at Intech?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I started working with Mike probably 5 years ago or so, around there, 5 or 6 years ago. Started part-time as a content specialist, and then kind of worked my way up the ranks and became marketing director for Intech Services. So been involved in Teflon marketing and industrial coating marketing for a number of years now. Some people have maybe seen me speak at I3 in the past, and looking forward to doing that again as soon as we can in person. So
yeah, I kind of miss I3. I'm looking forward to do that again too.
Yeah,
we're thinking about trying to do it this year, but we think it might be a little tight. And there's also venue issues as far as just finding places that can do it, and that sort of thing. So
not to mention
that's a challenge.
You'll be competing with everybody else trying to do their live events when life is back and everything. So I can see that for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really, it seems like people are really pushing to 2022 just to be safe. So if you're not in that tail end of the last couple of months, it's going to be rough. So wow, jumping into becoming a marketing person for this particular industry, I got to think is pretty tough. It would be for me. There's a lot to learn and a lot that's specific. So listen, from a layman's standpoint, could you explain to me what's marketing?
It's a good question. I think there's a number of definitions for it, and people will want to quantify it more than qualify it. I like to think of marketing as your voice. And by your voice, I mean, it's your company's voice, your brand's voice. And if you want to delve a little bit deeper, good marketing is your voice plus the truth. So it's about knowing who you are, knowing exactly what you deliver, who exactly you're delivering it to. Because if you know those things, then you can authentically speak to each of them and be able to actually promise something that you can deliver on, because those are the people who need that, and you're the person who does that. Good marketing when what you meet, quote unquote, in copy or on a website or any kind of non-sales experience actually matches what happens in the sales experience. So to me, it's all about knowing deeply identities in terms of yourself, your products, your services, and your audience, because that way you can really hone in on that and use it to speak to the right people about the right things at the right times.
That's a strong point. I've always liked when you talk about the voice and being authentic about it, because there's nothing worse than when there's a disconnect between who you think you're doing business with and who they actually are when you meet them, or when it comes time for them to serve up and deliver on what they say they're going to.
Yeah.
And I ran into this last week, and I know you heard me griping about it. So a good example of that is, I do a lot of business with M&T Bank, and I have a lot of, the business and homes. And so they're like, you're a preferred customer. You've got the online access, and we have dedicated support. If you ever need anything, it's a special rep, all this other stuff. Right. So it came time for us to send a wire payment. And
it's a pretty basic banking thing you should be able to do.
Yeah, and I have to like validate it. It's like secondary approval thing, and my little key fob thing didn't work. So I sat on the phone for 45 minutes on the special number, getting transferred around, and then finally I got disconnected. It didn't even let me talk to somebody. So I called the person that's my rep, and I couldn't get a hold of that person and all. So it's been over a week that I still don't have this replacement key fob.
But you're so special to them.
But I'm so special. And so the whole disconnect of like, we're here to serve and all, like, stop. Like that.
It's like nails on a chalkboard when it's not true. Yes,
yeah, totally
exactly.
Does. So that authentic is one thing. Anybody can say anything, but when it comes time to demonstrate and back it up, that's where you see the difference between marketing and being a blowhard.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody thinks they're marketing, but if you're not marketing in your voice, and if you're not marketing using the truth, then you're just lying really prettily, or fooling yourself at best, if we're going to be kind. It's because all marketing does is set up an expectation. You know, if you're being told you're preferred, you're special, we're here to serve, then why do you, as the preferred special person they're serving, have to wait and be hung up on and not know, have access to the answers easily if that's who they're supposed to be? So they just set up an expectation and then didn't deliver on it. It's an unfulfilled promise, and there's nothing that breaks trust faster than that.
Yeah. I can see Francesca's pretty fired up about my.
Let's go.
So.
Good morning.
You guys both got me. You guys both got me worried now, because I got this card that I'm on 14. If I eat my 15th sub, I'm supposed to be a sub commander. And I hope that they are who they say they are.
Good luck. You're just going to get lettuce.
Damn it. Mike, I got one for you then, because I'm always interested in learning a little bit more about this world. Take me into this special world of coatings. Is marketing the same for the coatings world, or is there something different about it?
That's a question I get quite a bit, Nick, in terms of people asking, like, what's unique about this, if anything, in the coding world? And I think it's a two-pronged answer. So there's absolutely some things that are foundationally the same of marketing in a traditional business world or traditional B2C world as what a Teflon coder would do, in terms of a lot of the things that Francesca outlined: knowing who you are, understanding what values you're trying to deliver, having a laser focus on your audience and the people that need your product or service, and then really understanding how to reach them with a clean, authentic, clear message. I mean, those things are universal in marketing, but I think there's some other challenges that are unique to Teflon. And I think these are the ones that a lot of companies struggle with, including in tech for that matter. I mean, it takes a while to really understand a lot of these nuances, because Teflon is such a unique, specialized world. And so one of the challenges I think that's out there that is a real struggle for many people is understanding exactly what value you are trying to deliver, or you will to deliver to your audience. And so the value, I think the best way for me to explain it is, I feel like a lot of coders tend to just characterize themselves as being applicators of a Teflon coating. You send me parts, we send them back with whatever coating you need to have on that. And that's true. But to me, it greatly understates or undervalues what they're really providing in most situations. And I'll give you some examples. I mean, I've seen Teflon coders get involved in projects where they're helping the engineer create a better solution. They're helping them to maybe switch metals and get away from an expensive exotic alloy and use a cheaper metal that, when coated, will outperform the expensive alloy. Many times they help engineers and specifiers to have maybe change the geometry of the part some, so that it can be coated in an efficient and effective manner. Because we've all seen parts that somebody will say, hey, coat this, but there's no way to hang it, or there's no way to rack it, or there's no way to get it into the oven. So, so I've seen Teflon coaters come up with unique ways to help people get that coating on the part effectively. Sometimes they help with not just coating selection, but, substrate preparation, like all kinds of different things that engineers might not understand is part of the coding process, but is inherently key parts of it. And so when you take all those different things and you bring it together and you see the solutions that are being created in the job shops that we go to, that's the value. And that's the part that I feel like a lot of people miss on, in that they understand they're applying coatings, but they're not giving themselves the credit they deserve for the decades of experience, the understanding of all these different substrates and end use environments that coatings may go in. And I feel like they're missing that value, which undermines the real service that they're providing to the world. So I think that's one area in the Teflon one that Francesca and I have seen time and time again, and is getting a real laser focus on exactly what you're providing beyond just the coating.
And you're totally right, Mike. And we see it because we see the marketing that coders do, and how they market themselves is exactly what you said in the beginning of, like, I can apply this coding for you, instead of I can help you find a solution. So what I find really unique about the coding world in terms of marketing is not only some of the missed opportunities in seeing that messaging, it's also that it's much harder in the industrial coding world, in the Teflon world, certainly, to actually reach those people that you're trying to influence with your solution. So to try and find the engineers and the specifiers that need the parts coated with Teflon is really a lot harder than finding, a consumer for, a specific product, because
35 to 45-year-old females. Like, it's
right.
a little easier than
you don't have your demographics like
aerospace engineer. It's hard. There's no list
for that. The plant
for
manager of tortilla manufacturers. Can you get me a list of those? Well,
damn.
Even if I could,
it's old. If you get a list, it's old.
There's turnover because people are moving up, or people are leaving, or they're doing other things. So it's definitely a mix of, what you were saying about the messaging is reduced too much in the coding world. And also the audience is harder to find in the coding world. And you put those two things together and you get a lot of marketing that just kind of is flat, or gets sent into the void.
The other part with the audience, Francesca, is I think there's kind of two things with that. One is a lot of times the audience, the engineers or specifiers that are working on these projects, they don't really even know they need a coating until a certain part down, through the process. Or they know they have to develop a solution to something, but they might not know that they need Teflon until they get, let's say, 75% through the project. They're like, damn, I need something that with more, this isn't enough lubrication. What can I put on there that will provide more lubrication? Or what can I put on this part that will give me a little bit more corrosion resistance? So they don't even know they need Teflon until they get to a certain point in their project, and so now you've got these hidden needs that even if I'm trying to market to them, the timing of that marketing.
Just going to say that. Yeah.
It's like throwing, a needle in a haystack almost, because if you get to them too early, they don't even know they need you. If you get to them too late, they've already solved the problem. And so the only time they're going to need you is if that part fails. And now they have to figure out how to re-engineer it, so to speak. So that hidden need combined with like a narrow window of timing to hit the sweet spot for them makes an already difficult audience really difficult to appeal.
Really challenging. And totally. And it's got to be like, and that's why it's so important to get your message right, to get that voice right, and to tell the truth, and to know those fundamentals, because as long as you're putting that out there and you do it on the right channels and all of that, then you can have your audience find you or know about you before, so that you are top of mind, because that's what marketing should do, is put you top of mind to the people that need what you are providing. And if you're not, because people, like you said, engineers aren't sitting around going like, now what Teflon coating should I use? No, they're doing a whole other job. So it's our job as marketers to make sure they know about you when they need you.
Yep.
All right. So
describe it.
Let me put you on the spot then, Francesca, and jump into the shoes of the people that are listening to us and go right at it. So let's say you got one silver bullet, you got one arrow in the quiver, you got one shot, one tip to give a coder about marketing. What would it be?
Just one.
Just one.
Just the one?
Don't go on into 2 or 3. You get one tip.
Yeah.
There's no 1A, 1B.
Yep.
This isn't
I
Meet
know how
the
you
Press. Yeah. This isn't Meet the Press, and you're not going to dance around it. One tip. One tip to give a coder about marketing.
Okay. If I had to give one tip to coders to help them improve their marketing and make it more effective, it would be to tell them to be a specialist and not a generalist. Because if you can get really narrow, and I mean like really narrow about what you do and who your audience or prospects are, then you're actually going to have effective marketing. A lot of people, and I want to explain the specialist generalist thing a little bit more, because I see a lot of generalists in this space. I mean, a lot. People who are putting every kind of part up on their website, every kind of coding is being featured. They're, jacks of all trades, and that makes them masters of none. So when you are talking about a generalist, it's somebody who can basically do a thing. If I'm kind of sick, if I need a physical, I'm going to my GP. But if I blew out my knee, I'm not going to my GP. I'm going to the person who knows everything about blown out knees and how to fix them, because that is all they do all day, every day. And that makes them the experts in their fields. I'm going to be more likely to defer to that person. I'm going to be more likely to listen to that person. And I'm going to know exactly how to find that person, because I know what specific kind of pain I'm having. And I think Teflon marketers or Teflon coders need to market similarly. I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's take a product example. Okay. If you have Teflon powder coating on your website, because that's just a picture of a part that's coated in Teflon powder. It was a nice stock image. It was the right colors. It fit the dimensions. You popped it on there and you're like, sure, I can do that. It's a Teflon coating. I do Teflon coatings. But do you actually carry that coating? Have you ever actually coated anything with that before? Or did your dad or your grandfather or your uncle have that business and code it once when they made that website years and years ago? Do you have the right turnaround time for somebody who needs a part that's coded like that? Do you know exactly the intricacies that are needed for a Teflon powder coating? Or are you mostly using, other coatings and you just happen to have that? And so when you catch that Teflon powder coating job, you aren't going to be the specialist. You're going to have just as many questions as your customer, and it's not going to be the solution provided that is needed.
It goes back to the expectation you said earlier, Francesca. Like if I'm the engineer and I see, they can coat that part for me. I see it's on their website. My expectation is they're experts in doing that. Now they're going up the learning curve just like me.
Yeah.
So it can be dangerous. That's a slippery slope in terms of the expectation being one thing, and then the part you deliver may not perform or may not be suitable for the application.
And that can be really dangerous in our world, because if you're talking about something like, if somebody comes to you with ball valves for a nuclear sub because you have one of those on your website, and you're like, hey, I need 100 of these coded. And you're like, yeah, sure. Well, if you don't actually know what you're doing, failure on your part is going to cause massive destruction to your reputation, to the end user, because they have skin in the game. And if you have something that critical fail because you have a picture on a website, because you're a generalist and not a specialist, that's because you didn't market correctly. You never knew who you really were. You never knew who you really served. You never knew what you really do well. Yep. So specialist, not generalist, all day, every day.
Nice. Well, that quick note, Francesca will not coat my nuclear sub. Ask the fifth year to do it. So it was very well explained. I need to ask you about Teflon coders then. I'm going to flip it back to you, Mike. Why are Teflon coders so general in their approach?
I love that. It's a great follow-up because it's something we, like Francesca said, we see a lot of it. And I think it's a pretty simple answer though. One thing I've noticed in my time in this industry is that most of the Teflon coders and are very private in their business, and for good reason. They've developed processes and procedures, and they've invested in equipment to carry out the coding process. They have key personnel who many times have been spraying Teflon as long as I've been alive, and are just masters at applying coding to parts. And so because of that, they don't want to lose that. That's their competitive advantage. That's their secret sauce. So, everybody thinks they have something unique. And I'll tell you guys this, most of you guys don't. I mean, everybody's applying Teflon in the same way.
Bombs.
Yeah. I mean,
Teflon
it really is. I mean,
bombs.
there's people with unique process, and they certainly have unique characteristics in terms of their team and things like that. But the application of a coding to a part is pretty much the same around the country and around the world. It's just some slight nuances that are different. But that competitive advantage and perceived competitive advantage causes people to want to be private. And then that leads to the next part, which is don't say anything on social or put anything on our website. And because they don't want to lose that stuff. Yeah. So they get very vague in their messaging and very general and say, here's the industries we serve. And it's like basically every industry on the face of the earth.
Yes. I see that all the time.
And so that generalization comes from the fact that they want to protect themselves by not revealing the things that really help them to be unique and to be solution providers. And so it's a really tough, like the yin and the yang of Teflon marketing almost. And, one thing that it's in my head, but I could never figure out how to articulate it until we were developing this episode, which is, Francesca talks about generalists and specialists, and it's something that she's brought to Intech in terms of how we market and how we position what we do. And I'm a believer in that theory and how it can be beneficial. And the thing that really occurred to me with this is, by its very nature, a Teflon coating company is a specialist. They provided advanced material to critical components around the world. There's an elite handful of companies around the world that actually do this compared to, powder coaters and other, low-end liquid coaters. So Teflon coaters are absolutely specialists and experts in this world. But yet, by being vague in their marketing and in their messaging, they've reduced themselves to being generalists, because now they sit in the same ballpark as everybody else out there with people that don't know exactly what they're doing or exactly where they specialize. So it's almost like a devaluation of what they're bringing to the table because the messaging can be so general.
Yeah. And you see that too with, I think you see that as well, because people don't want prospects to come to their website and not see themselves there and then kind of opt out, because frankly, won't we all take money if it's green? So it's that kind of mentality, or that kind of mindset of I'll take any job, is not going to actually get you more business. If you can be the specialist and then speak as the specialist that is a solution provider, the difference between like, I'm a doctor and I'm your general practitioner and I'm going to make you walk again because I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and I'll make sure that you're pain-free walking with your knee. There's a big difference there. So I think people need to understand that it is scary to put what you do out there, and there's a risk there because you don't want somebody to see what you do and then copy you and lower their prices. And now you're suddenly in a price war. But if you're a true specialist, that doesn't happen. That can't happen because you are doing something that others can't do as well.
And to kind of build on that, Francesca, the coding companies that I've seen that are specialists, they know they're specialists, and I think they have a confidence that they know their customers love them for what they do because they have zero rejects or they're always on time, and whatever it might be. They don't worry about losing customers because they know their customers can't get what they provide anywhere else. They don't worry about losing employees because their employees are well taken care of and love working in that environment and have a pride of ownership almost in what they do and how they've helped that company grow. So this, I think in some ways, I want to make sure we're not painting the picture with the brush that everyone out there is a generalist. I mean, there's a lot of it. It's a lot of it for sure. But there is also some people that are specialists, and their approach, I think, in allowing themselves to be confident in sharing some of the things that makes them specialists is what helps the business continue to thrive.
Mm-hmm. And they get more of the same business. So they get to become deeper and deeper in, experts in that application or in that part or in that coding. Right. And so that just furthers your specialty and puts you ahead of the curve.
Well, they're no longer competing on price. They're competing on value, which is, we always preach about as far as understand the value of what you're doing. And the specialists can do that because they're providing a value that others do not.
Yeah, exactly. Because it goes back to what you said, Mike, of like people are positioning themselves as like, I code a part, and you're not, you are doing noise reduction. You are doing lubricity. You are doing you're doing things that are actually preventing problems or are solving problems or are saving money. So that's what your marketing needs to be, is the outcome of what you do, not the what you do, as the first point of your messaging.
That's good. Yep.
You two rapscallions got me right where you want me. And now I can just sense that we have a to be continued thing here, and it's getting me mad. You two have given us a good overview of the very basics of marketing and effective marketing, but that's where we're stopping today. And I'm not happy about it. I just want you both to know.
We'll be back.
This is part 1 of 2, everyone. We'll be back with the secrets and tools and activities to help turn your marketing around.
That's right. Because marketing isn't just the philosophy behind it. It's also what you do with that and how you do it and where you do it. So we'll definitely be coming back and talking about the marketing activities that you should be doing, the marketing platforms that you should be using, and all of those good tools and tricks that are much more the action of marketing and not the philosophy of marketing.
Can I ask one question, Francesca? What's the difference between a tip and a hack?
I think a hack is a shortcut. And it's an easier way to do something. And a tip is a piece of advice that allows you to figure out how to do it yourself or to do it better.
Implement it for yourself.
Yeah. To me, a hack is like, you could do it that way, or you could take this way and do it a whole lot faster. But there's only like one prescribed way to have a hack. Yeah. Whereas one tip just could lead you down to other things. I love words.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's why I asked the question.
Thanks for not asking me what a hack is. I have a list that's like a mile long. Now, guys, that was great. It took us into the what, and I'm very interested. We're going to get the how next time. We'll talk about part 2 in marketing. We're going to talk about the how and the activities, the pros and cons in marketing ROI. So, Mike, Francesca, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
A lot of fun. We can talk about this all day in case you haven't figured that out.
Hey, and we're gonna have you back for the next one, for the next Deliver More, presented by Intech Services. Thanks for joining us today. We're gonna see you next time from Delaware. Be good now.